If you're like me, then you probably have been feeling like video games in general have been a bit bad as of late. A few good titles here and there, but nothing really sticks until Elden Ring was released, and my love for video games was reignited. Elden Ring was released on February 25th, almost 4 months ago, and in a matter of weeks was outselling all of their previous titles, even outselling the Call of Duty franchise. But how did they do it? Today, we are going to be talking about how I think FromSoftware was able to accomplish this, as well as why I think Elden Ring set a new standard for gaming. Right off the bat, Elden Ring was an ambitious project. Miyazaki and his team planned for this to be their biggest release yet, even taking on George R.R. Martin to write the story. The announcement came in 2019 at E3, and people were excited. I can safely say that they lived up to their expectations. The game is amazing, and as I briefly mentioned, it outsold Call of Duty, and is on its way to be the game of the year. Elden Ring has exceeded 13 million sales. Just for reference, Tetris, which is the third best-selling game of all time, with 100 million sales, and Elden Ring in just a few months has sold 13% of that. And if that wasn't enough, Elden Ring had a staggering 953,000 players on its weekend release. And the game has been #1 selling for pretty much the whole year, and will likely stay there until all the COD fans buy the same game over again. Obviously, I'm joking. COD fans, please don't hurt me. Regardless, Elden Ring's release was pretty good, other than some PC players having a few issues with performance, like myself.
Uh-oh. Guts in midair. Are you...
But in only a few weeks, they were fixed. As I'm editing this, I'm seeing a lot of different articles and threads of people saying they still do have issues, but I'm also seeing some articles saying that the game is completely fine and playable. So I guess it's just up to your experience with the game. So just take all the information that I say about the PC issues with a grain of salt. Millions of players were being introduced to the Souls-like series, and this game hit the sweet spot for OG fans as well. Me personally, this was my second ever FromSoft game. I started on Dark Souls 3, and it took me about a month to beat because I got stuck on the Abyss Watchers for literally 2 weeks. Still one of the worst things I've done, but after I took the time to learn this boss, it actually ended up being a fun fight. Ironically, after I spent the time to learn the game, the experience was like no other. I realized the true beauty of this game and games like it, and the same goes with Elden Ring. The lore, the graphics, the atmosphere, it's all so well done. Before buying the game, I was mainly skeptical of one thing: open world. The open world games are like the most common games nowadays, and a lot of the time it's just a bunch of open space, and to my surprise, it wasn't like that. There was towns with enemies, wildlife, ruins, and much more to fill that open world gap, and it didn't feel like it was just an empty, endless of nothingness. And the addition of Torrent, or the horse, made it even that much easier to explore the terrain. And overall, I thought it was integrated pretty damn well. Getting lost isn't really a nuisance in this game. It just allows you to have more fun exploring and finding new areas. I've played the game about 5 times and still don't feel like I've done everything I can. For a while, I, like many others, had this weird video game drought where you were just going back, playing the same game over and over, and honestly didn't find really much of anything fun. And I thought it was just that the games were poor until this game came out, and I realized that wasn't the case at all. I loved every second of playing this game, and I still play it, and even made me more excited for games to come. And I even found myself going back to the previous FromSoft titles, just like a lot of others. Speaking of the previous titles, a lot of people like to judge FromSoftware in reusing content and their formula, but I don't really see it like that. Each title is an expansion and is innovative of the previous, and as for the formula, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Isn't that what they say? Plus, there's Sekiro, which is a completely different style of game, and it proves that they can make something new if they really wanted to. But like I said, why change something that isn't really a problem? Another thing I see people complain about in Elden Ring is the difficulty. Why is there no easy mode? And, you know, the obvious answer is we'll look at their previous games, but another great aspect of Elden Ring is that you can make the game easy. There are builds which make the game pretty much effortless. Rivers of Blood, Mage, And part of the fun is actually just learning each boss, because after fighting them for hours, the feeling you get once beating one is like no other. I mean, take Melania for example. That boss took me like 6 hours, and beating her, I was overfilled with joy, and I just felt like I accomplished the hardest thing ever. This game really does hit it all for me, man. The replayability, the sheer amount of different ways to play the game makes it almost like a new experience every time. Different weapons, spells, incantations, builds, and even recreating anime characters in the game. I wonder who would do that. The Ash of War system also makes the combat refreshing every single time. Boss designs are also like no other. In some of the other titles, one thing that I found to be pretty prominent is that a lot of the boss fights would kind of feel like the same fight with just a different skin. You would do the same movements, the boss would do the same attacks, and so on and so on. And while this game does have its fair share of copy-paste bosses, the ones that aren't copy-paste are like no other. You know, fighting Moog and fighting Melania is a completely different situation. It's a completely different strategy. And that's what really grabbed my attention and what really made me love this game. Starting out, you fight some weirdo with a hammer and stick, to an axe-wielding dragon maniac, to then a witch that spawns a literal ghost dragon on you. This is what I think separates the game not only from previous titles, but from games in general. The FromSoft team is a team that to me genuinely cares about making a good game and actually puts effort into making sure the game is complete. Something we can't say a lot nowadays, especially when it comes to AAA companies. I mean, look at Battlefield 2042. When the game was released, it had so many performance issues you couldn't count them all, and the game being practically unfinished. And don't even get me started on Cyberpunk or even No Man's Sky. Both of these games were released way too early, unfinished, and they took about 2 or even 3 years to actually get good again, which just seems to be a weird occurrence now, where games come out unfinished and they take 2 years to fix it, which is such a dumb motto. That's why delays are way better, and that's why delays are a thing. Come on now, I'd rather play a game fully than play 1/4 of a game every year. I'm getting sidetracked, but I'm glad that this wasn't the case with Elden Ring. The PC version was buggy, yes, but it was fixed in a matter of weeks, or at least for me. I can't speak for others' experiences. The game came out fully completed without microtransactions, which is something we see a lot of nowadays, like Diablo Immortal, where you can pretty much whale your way through the entire game. Games like FIFA, riddled with microtransactions. These types of games are games where the richest prevail, which is such a dumb thing, especially in games. Even Call of Duty, but at least most of these in Call of Duty are cosmetic. And yes, I understand that when we're talking about microtransactions, comparing multiplayer games to single player games isn't really fair. But there's still some single player games that are guilty of microtransactions. I mean, take the Avengers game for example. Elden Ring has none of it. Just one-time payment, get all the cosmetics, get everything in the game, excluding DLC, which hasn't been announced, but usually the DLCs are well worth the money. This is what I think made Elden Ring so successful. I feel like most big companies just try and squeeze every penny out of a mid-tier game, when the real key is just to put some more effort into making a great game, and Elden Ring directly is proof of this. Us consumers recognize that quality, and when a game is there for me to enjoy and not for me to dump loads of money into. And this is how I think Elden Ring is raising the bar for games, by providing not only a finished game, but providing us with an experience like no other. Elden Ring has had an amazing impact on not only my life, but probably many others. And I personally will forever remember this game, and I can't even tell you the last time I felt like this about playing a video game. Probably when the recent God of War was released. That game was fucking amazing. Developers all around the world can learn from FromSoftware, as they directly prove the power of mastering your craft and leaving no stone unturned. The gaming industry for a while has been going down this path where the game itself does not matter or how good it is, but all that matters is the money. And yes, of course, I'm not naive. I get that these are companies, corporations that need money and profits to keep running, and that's one of their main priorities, but they don't seem to understand that profit will come from effort, and people will recognize effort. If people are saying good things about your game, more people will buy it. If people are saying your game is riddled with microtransactions, that's going to turn people away. That's why no one supports NFT games. And Elden Ring also backs this up. This is why it had 13 million sales and almost a million players on the weekend of its release. They show developers, big and small, that what truly matters is the game itself. If the game is well done, people will recognize and support it, and I can only hope more big companies will start to care a little more, and I think they are, as many games have already started to get delayed this year, and yeah, I'd rather have delays and finalizing than, what's been happening as of recent. And this is how I think Elden Ring raised the bar for gaming.